I've always felt, for as far back as I can remember, that the world in which we live and the life that we live, in its own way, inside us and through time, takes on a quality of art. Yeah? As a writer, my life's journey has been to try to catch all at once as many levels of the mysterious and beautiful things that make us human, as well as the tragic things, but transcendentally. I'm always pursuing newer ways of telling stories, because a story is not a beginning, a middle, and an end. A story is much richer than that. A story is almost like an interval in the enchantment of living. Phases of music. That's what a story really is. It's not that this happened to that person, then they did that. That's not what a story is. This earth that we live in is full of stories, in the same way that for a fish, the ocean is just full of ocean. Some people say when we're born into stories. I say we're born also from stories. There are invisible stories and there are visible ones. I'm fascinated by invisible stories. I think maybe the purpose of what we try to do in art, finally, is to enchant the human heart and the human mind into a sense of its true kingdom, of its magnificence. And so my writing is not really about what you read on the page. The writing is intended to take you somewhere. It's what it does to you in the taking you somewhere that it's about. It's not about this happened to that person. It's a journey. The minute you begin a book like Star Book, you're on a journey, and that journey is the point. Ideally, I'd like my readers to both not finish my books and to finish them. If you can manage those two things at the same time, you'll get the exact spirit in which I write. Now that is a very simple and very complicated question. For many years, as far back as I can remember, I've had this urge in me to write a novel that brought together all of my preoccupations. The nature of reality, the place of dreams in our lives, the mysterious ways of dealing with loss, but I think the real trigger was exactly as it is stated in the first sentence and the first paragraph of the novel, that it was a story my mother began to tell me when I was a child. She didn't finish it. She got interrupted. Life came along and she passed on. And I was haunted by that beginning. There's also the question of slavery, the slave trade. There's a way it's been dealt with in narration that has troubled me. And I always wanted to deal with the fullest dimensions of a people. you cannot begin to appreciate what a people's life really is and what their loss is till you've given them the full dimensions of their lives. Also, I think I want to find a new way of telling stories, a more joyful and more mysterious way. The roots of a book like this are just simply indefinable. One day I just began to write. I was lying on the floor, and I wrote that first sentence. I wasn't preparing to write a book at all. I began that sentence, and the next sentence followed, and I took a deep breath and leapt. And I just cleared up my diary. And that's how it happened. It was written on the floor, and it was written completely without any determination or deliberation. If you ask me truthfully what I think my greatest achievement is with Starbook, I would say it's the method in which it's told, the method of the telling. I use a circular method. I use a method that abolishes time. I use a method that leaps across space, traditions, that tells stories through affinities. It's a poetic method, but a poetic method of narration. It's a method that in some way is inspired by mesmerism and hallucination and dream. If you think of leaping across a landscape from one stone to the other, but then imagine leaping across a landscape in the air from one cloud to the other. It's the cloud method I'm using in this book. That is an impossible question. In terms of the novel, the book of life is the means by which I'm able to tell a story that is not possible for me to tell in a normal way. In the normal novel, you have the facts and you tell the stories. You tell the story in sequence because you have the facts or because you're making them up. In this particular case, I was dealing with loss. I was dealing with the complete absence of facts. I was dealing with great gaps. Partly because I think I come from a tradition that is largely an oral tradition. And so many things are not written down. They're passed down by word of mouth. So how do you tell a story when you don't have the facts? But the story is complete inside you. There is an ancient tradition that there exists in the universe as part of the human consciousness and as part of the spiritual consciousness of humanity, a place that is not a place in which the total knowledge of everything exists. Some people call it the book of life. I say we have access to this through our dreams, through our intuitions, through our inspirations, through the indirect forms that art takes, through our undeciphered prophecies. Humanity is constantly in touch with this mysterious book of life, but without knowing it. I just for the first time wanted to use that method of telling a story by having access to a totality of knowledge. But selectively, in relation to a particular story, not in relation to everything. So you could say, in one phrase, you could say the book of life is the compendium, the secret compendium of the universe.